This is section 4.1, exponential functions, and in this video we're going to look at writing equations for given exponential functions. Okay, so an exponential function is a function that can be written of the form f of x equals a times b to the x, where b is greater than 0 and b cannot equal 1. A is the initial value of the function. It's the value when x is equal to 0, so it is your y-intercept, and b is the base of the function. The important thing about exponential functions is that the variable is found in the exponent. Okay, so we're going to look at a set of functions and decide whether or not they're exponential functions. So the first one, f of x equals 3 to the x. In this case, my a value would be 1. Okay, my base is 3. And my exponent is x. So this is a basic exponential function where a is 1, a is 1, a is 1, is 1. Let's look at g of x. G of x is 7 times 2 to the negative x. So a negative exponent means that we could rewrite this as 1/2 to the x power, right? The negative exponent means 1 over 2. Okay, so in this case, a is 7, b is 1/2 to the x power. So this is also an exponential function. Okay, now let's look at h of x. H of x equals 3x to the negative 4. Notice that the variable is not in the exponent. Okay, the exponent is a constant, meaning this is not an exponential function. To be an exponential function, your variable needs to be in the exponent. Now let's look at k of x. So k of x equals the square root of 7 to the x. All right, so we could rewrite this as 7 to the x to the 1/2 power, which is the same as 7 to the 1/2 x. Okay? So this is an exponential function. Okay, we're raising. This can also be written as 7 to the 1/2 to the x. Okay, so your base is 7 to the 1/2, or the square root of 7. This is your base. Your exponent is x, so this is an exponential function. Let's look at m of x. So m of x equals negative 2 times 1.5 to the x power. So my a is negative 2. My base is 1.5. And my exponent is the variable, so this is an exponential function. Okay, then let's look at n of x. N of x equals 5 times 5 times 6 to the pi. Okay, so a would be 5, b would be 6. My exponent is pi. Pi is actually a constant, not a variable. So this is not an exponential function. It does not have a variable in the exponent. Pi is a constant. Okay, now let's look at writing an exponential function for a given table. Okay, so given that this is exponential, we want to write an equation. So our basic exponential equation is a times b to the x power. Okay, so a is the value. It's the initial value. So when b is 0, a is 4. Okay, so once you know what the function is at 0, you know that a is 4. Okay, so once you find the initial value, then you need to find out what the base is. So you can do this either by looking at what these are being multiplied each time. So you can see 4/3 to 4, you want to multiply by 3. From 4 to 12, again, multiply by 3. So every time you multiply by 3 to get to the next term, that is exactly what an exponential function is. So you know you're multiplying by 3 each time. So the function is 4 times 3 to the x. Let's look at another table where we're given less information. So we're given the initial value, and then we're given the value when x is 2. Okay, so we start with our basic equation, y equals a times b to the x. Okay, I'm going to fill in my initial information. Okay, so my initial value, a, is 8. Okay, so as soon as I know the initial value, I can fill in a, and then I need to find out what b is. So I'm going to do this by just filling in these. So y is 1/2, and b is squared, right? X is 2. Okay, so all I've done is fill in this point. Okay, and then I'm just going to solve to find out what b is. So 8 times b squared. If I want to solve for b, that means I want to divide by 8. Okay, so 1/2 divided by 8 is 1/16. Okay, and then to find b, I would just take the square root of both sides. And the square root of 1/16 is 1/4. So then I know that b is 1/4. So my equation is 8 times 1/4 to the x. Okay, and then I want to look at one more example where we're writing an equation from a graph. It's really the same as the equation from the table, it's just you're given the data in graph form. So we're given 2 points. We're given 0, 1/2 and 1, 3. Okay, so you're always looking for your y-intercept because A is your y-intercept. Okay, so once we know what A is, we can fill that in to our basic equation. Y equals a times b to the x. So A is 1/2. Okay, and then I'm just going to fill in the other point into this equation. So 3 equals 1/2 times b to the 1 power. Okay, so 3 equals 1/2 of b. To get b by itself, I would multiply both sides by 2. So b equals 6. And then I can write my final equation. So y equals 1/2 times 6 to the x.